coming in and eating the personal computer market. Sony had announced the PlayStation not that long before that, and it had all these capabilities, and Microsoft basically said, hey, this wouldn't be hard for them to turn this thing into a personal computer. And now they have, a gaming system / personal computer in everybody's living room across the world. And we have to stop them. So they said, what we want to do is we want to create our own gaming system. And we want you, Gateway, to build the hardware. And we will build the software. And together we will attack Sony. I said, okay, cool. So we sat down over a couple days and we hammered out an architecture that you now know as Xbox. Mm. And now to be fair, they had a whole bunch of it prepared. I added some to it, but they had a lot of it already done, which it was based on, pretty much an Intel chipset. And looked very much like a PC, and it was going to run a stripped down version of Windows that was really the OS that sat behind it. So they said, well, after finishing all the technical components, they said, this is the business plan. And they had a well-prepared business document. And I flew home with that document. I started reading it, and I realized, hey, this plan shows the hardware maker, which would have been Gateway, losing a shitload of money the first couple of years. By shitload, I mean like hundreds of millions of dollars. However, there's some problems with the analysis. The analysis said things like every gaming system would only have one controller. That I think the number was something like 10% of the systems would have a network connection, that it would, it wouldn't be, there would be basically very little online gaming. And the average person would buy a certain number of software or games. It was a very small number. Mm-hmm. So I looked at it and said, these numbers are way wrong. People are going to have a shitload of controllers. They're going to have multiple controllers. And I remember gaming was at the time that, the vision was, well, they might have one controller for certain types of games and another controller for other types of games. And like, you remember, like they'd have
joysticks.
The joysticks. And hey, we're going to sell a shitload of these accessories. And if I change these numbers a little bit, we lose a tiny bit of money the first year. By the second year, we're making a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. So I had gone back to the rest of the executive team at Gateway and disclosed to them what was going on, specifically Ted Waite, who was the CEO. And I said, this looks really good. I think we should do it. And he was in agreement, said we should do it. So I called him up and I said, hey, we're in. And there was like silence on the end of the phone. You'd expect, like somebody just asked you to prom, right? Mm-hmm. And you said yes. And then you get like silence on the end of the phone. Like, mm-hmm. This is weird. Aren't you excited? You asked me to do this with you, and no, mm-hmm. I said yes, and they said, well, we don't think that's a very good decision. You should really think about this. We think it'd be in your best interest to not do this. Like, what? Why are you saying this to me? You asked me to come out. I spent all this time with you. I analyzed it. I said, well, you're going to lose a bunch of money, and you're our biggest customer. If you do this and you go belly up, it doesn't do us any good, and you're out of business.
Why would they pitch you this in the first place? I mean, this makes no sense.
Yeah, well, I'll wrap this around for you.
Okay, all right.
So now remember, I mean, at this point, Xbox does not exist in the world. This is just, we're behind the scenes. So I'm like, well, hey, we're big boys. We know what we're doing, and we want to do this. Now remember, we're building like 10 million PCs a year. We're making about $1 billion in profit per year. That was our company with 25,000 employees.
It's impressive.
And we think we can handle it, right? So they end up denying us, saying, no, we're going to go alone. We're going to go alone for your own good. Like, we're going to go alone and fight the big bad Sony. Right? Well, a little time passes and I'm at a conference and I end up talking to a guy from HP who's in a similar position to me. And usually those kind of conversations were very cloaked. Like that was a world where sharing wasn't something that was done a lot. But somehow we got on the conversation and I got a clue that this guy might have known about the project, the Xbox project.
They leveraged all you guys for ideas, didn't they?
Well, even worse. Even worse. They did. So they had made the same fucking pitch to this guy. He had said no, though.
Oh, really?
They all said no. I was the only one that said yes. This is what they wanted. They wanted permission from the entire customer base to enter the hardware business, which they had, other than the Microsoft mouse. Microsoft made no hardware. It was the only piece of hardware they made was the mouse. And they had to be very careful because of antitrust and other stuff. So what they were doing was they were inviting all of the big customers in, giving them the option to participate in Xbox, expecting them all to say no, thereby giving them permission.
That's unbelievable.
To fight any antitrust.
Yeah.
And not piss off any of their customers.
Yeah. So
we ruined the party by saying yes. And, so anyway, that's a little story that people like, what really is happening in back rooms of big companies and the way that these kind of companies like Intel and Microsoft will wield this power and skirt the system. And so, it's very disillusioning.
We're seeing a lot of it with Google now. I mean, they just recently lost a lawsuit, or see what happens there. But yeah, they're got a lot of monopoly behavior and stuff going on. Search to advertising to all the, videos, all these different things, YouTube.
Yeah. And they
should be like probably 3 or 4 different companies.
Yeah. And, they don't, I think there are some of the people just they don't view the world the same way. So what's ethical and moral is very different from, I think, what maybe the general public looks at. For them, ethical and moral often just means not illegal. And even not illegal means not illegal enough that we'll get caught or prosecuted. Like even if they,
with a company like Google, when you have in your mission statement, don't do evil, and then you take that out, I mean, that's not really a good thing. There's really no reason to ever take don't be evil out of your mission statement, right? Like, why would you ever remove that? Right. And indeed, if you do go down the rabbit hole and look at some of the stuff they're doing now, it's honestly very evil with how they're, manipulating people, using people's private data that they've accumulated to, push votes, to tell a certain group of people to go register to vote, show political propaganda to this group of people because you have all their search history from since they've been 10 years old, and they've got their Gmail account and you have all their data. You've read all their emails. You've plugged it into an algorithm and you know what issue to show them to swing their vote in an election. I mean, this is actually happening. I'm hoping to have Dr. Robert Epstein and the Tech Watch Foundation on this pod eventually to talk about like some of this stuff, but it's kind of wild. It's very Orwellian and
and when the people perpetuating it don't even view it as bad. In fact, they'll often
justify it.
They often justify.
The ends justify the means. Orange man's bad or whatever it is.
Whatever it is. Yeah,
he's Adolf Hitler.
I mean, that could come from the right too, but
of course.
It's
but this position of power, the power right now resides with this big tech. It's like in San Francisco and this little woke stuff.
Of course.
So
I think it definitely comes more from that side. And, and we see it in Bitcoin, by the way, too. I mean, talk a little about Bitcoin. I mean, like we have a statement within Barefoot, for instance, which is our mission is Bitcoin centric. And we say we operate within the ethos of Bitcoin. So every action we take if it does harm to Bitcoin, then we won't do it. Like, even if it means short term better for us, but it's harmful to Bitcoin, we won't do it. Ocean, which I'm on the board of, we have in the bylaws of the company actually a do no harm to Bitcoin. Literally in the operating agreement of the company is do no harm.
I like that.
You know, it's, you know, there's a lot of people who virtue signal. There's a lot of people that justify, as you've said. I think that I've seen a lot of it come from a lot of the inscription NFT stuff relative to Bitcoin, you know, and the way that the base layer gets used and manipulated to do that. And it's a lot of it, I think, comes from, well, there's two types of people, I believe. One, or there's three. That there's one group that believes the end justifies the means.